Hello, beautiful soul family. Rebecca here, your vibe mentor. And this continues to be the space for conscious, purpose driven entrepreneurs who are looking to remove the blocks that hold them back from their purpose so they can manifest abundance through it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It has been a relatively quiet week on the YouTube channel side, but it has been a very, very, very busy week for me on the course and community side. So I'm missing you. I love being here with you, as I always tell you. Pardon the lack of edits. This might be how we have to move forward because things are just getting busier and busier, and I have to pull back somewhere. And so at the end of the day, the content is the most important. And while I know you love beautiful images to keep you engaged, if your soul is committed to the path of stepping into your purpose and manifesting abundance through it, then you will stick around with or without edits. So I wanted to talk to you today about hearing your guidance. Even more than that, we tend to, as seekers and light workers, especially those who are still in the hidden seeker stage, we continue to look outside of us for answers. And what I see is one of the most beautiful, or one of the many beautiful things that happens after someone has healed from their trauma, is this coming home to oneself, coming home to your heart. And I love the new meaning that home is where the heart is has now taken on for me, because as we heal, we trust ourselves, we rest in our bodies, and we realize how many resources are available to us to provide guidance that come from within us, that can provide custom guidance that is not, a general tarot card reading or an astrology reading or whatever that might be. And then I'm not to demean those things. Those things are just fine. They could certainly benefit and supplement. I actually use them as a source of encouragement now already to support what I already know, instead of seeking for, when is it going to get better? When is it going to shift and change? Or what should I do because I don't trust myself? And so I want to talk to you today about hearing your guidance and all of the different ways in which your guidance can show up. And this is going to be different than you've ever heard before, because this is something that has been coming to me recently, and is a compilation of trauma healing, psychology, biology, and spirituality. So before I do, I just want to remind you, I offer free 30-minute sessions. So if you are struggling, if you know that you have a purpose, you have that yearning, that desire to do something that matters, if you know that you are meant to be here to help eliminate human suffering, you know that you are a light worker and you are supposed to be doing something with the gifts that you have, but you can't quite seem to get yourself to do it, jump on a 30-minute call with me. I promise you, I can identify your root cause of your blocks within 30 minutes or less. Now, I will just preface it that most sessions go over 30 minutes, but it sounds good. No, I'm just kidding. I like to be honest as well. So how do we hear our guidance? One of the, and I have a tendency to say this often, one of the most common things, right? They're all very common. There's so many patterns in the realm of light workers who struggle to put themselves out there and get, to shine their light, and how they've experienced trauma and why that holds us back. And so it really starts at those initial moments, sometimes pre-birth, sometimes in the womb, sometimes at birth, sometimes at such young ages that we don't even realize it's happening. But the first breakdown happens when we receive the message from the outside world that there is something wrong with us, right? If we didn't feel safe or seen or heard or cared for or loved, subtly, subconsciously, we receive the message that there's something wrong with us, right? There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not enough. Period. Right. That's why I like to call it the not enoughness wound, more than the worthiness wound. And you can see how it's directly connected to abundance blocks and the lack mentality. It's just, there's not enough. I'm not enough. You're not enough. There's never enough. The world is not enough. Right. And so you can see how this starts to show up. So the moment mom didn't look you in the eye as an infant, did you know? even at that early stage, just eye contact alone or lack of it can teach a child that there's something missing. There's something wrong. There must be something wrong with me, right? So the first thing that gets stuffed down is who I am as a problem, right? And then the next thing is what I need as a problem. This is why we struggle to figure out, what are my gifts? What am I good at? Because your needs, you have to have your needs met in order for you to flourish. And you have to acknowledge that you deserve to have your needs met and that you are a beautiful, perfectly imperfect person for your purpose, to be able to start to play with your gifts early on, to be able to develop them and get to know them, because it's a process of alchemy and it takes a long time to make your soup of life and taste it and see what it tastes like and add new ingredients if you need to, right? So that happens. We stuff down who we are and we deny what we need. And therefore, what comes along with that is you can't trust yourself. You should not listen to how you feel. It's kind of that suck it up buttercup mentality. Deal with it, right? How many times did someone tell you, you're crazy? What's wrong with you? You shouldn't feel that way. They're teaching you to deny and reject who you are. In those moments, parts of you fracture off. So we disassociate from our body, we disassociate from our needs, we disassociate. What that means is we look away from, we ignore, we disconnect, we fracture, right? And so we start to self-abandon and reject ourselves, who we are and what we need. So this is why it becomes so difficult for us to get in tune with our own guidance. Self-doubt, the inner critic. I like to call it the little trauma demon that sits on my shoulder and tells me, that's not right. You can't do that. That's not safe. Don't listen to that. How many times do you get an intuitive hit, which is usually the first thing that comes when you ask a question? Very, very, very quickly, lightning fast, because it's fast as light. And then from there, all the rational thinking, all of the ifs and the ands and the buts and the I can'ts and the walls and the prisons we build around ourselves through all of that doubt and overthinking, the hamster wheel that never ends and never actually even solves any problems, even though it makes you think it is, right? We put blocks between the parts of ourselves. We put blocks between us and our guidance, even though it's in us. So here's what I want to share, right? How do we hear our guidance? How do we tap into the vast library of resources, of sources for guidance that we have within our being? So think of your entire body as a library of resources, and then recognize we use about this much of the rest of it. We live in our brains. That is the way of the world. That is the way society has been. That's the way we were raised. It would be unreasonable for us to expect us to have done it any differently, because no one taught us any better. But now that you're here, you will know better, so you can do better. We're going to bring into this conversation the archetypes, the inner child in all of its different ages and stages, and the network of organs and parts inside of yourself, right? Your heart has an intelligence, your gut has an intelligence, your arm, your hand, your finger, your leg, right? Your neck, your shoulders, all of these things. These are all aspects of you. They're in psychology, they call it internal family systems, right? These are all different areas that have a consciousness, that are a resource for you, made specifically for you, customized to you. And they all have information that they can bring to you. And so as you're moving through the world and you're feeling triggered or you're feeling uncertain around something you should do, we want to look at the different areas of you that are showing up, right? So if you feel triggered, where in your body do you feel that most? What area of your body calls your attention most? Where do you feel the most activation, right? If it has something to do with your power, it's going to show up in your solar plexus. If it has something to do with worthiness, it might show up in the heart. If it has something to do with over giving and taking responsibility for how everyone else feels, it might be in your shoulders, right? So notice that area of your body that shows up and is wanting to deliver a message to you. Now, part of what we do in trauma spotting through source tapping is working through that process. If it's a trauma, you're going to need more than just a couple minutes with it. But eventually, that part of you will deliver a message, keeping the conversation focused on receiving guidance. That part of you has a message. It wants to help you in whatever situation you're dealing with. So you can bring your conscious focus and attention down to that part of your body and just sit with it. And then the next thing is notice how old that feeling feels, right? Does it feel like the 14-year-old version of yourself? Does it feel like the 7-year-old version of yourself? Does it feel like the 3-year-old version of yourself? And know that that part of you is also, they're all always with you, but it also has guidance, suggestions, and needs, and it will help you. Then from there, recognize, this is where we step into the resourcing. We recognize that you have all of the archetypes available to you. You have the warrior, you have the mother, you have the lover, you have the gesture, you have the artist, you have all of the different parts of you available to you for you to call on and bring forward in any moment. We also get to ask parts of us to take a back seat. The part that feels wounded and hurt should not be put in the back seat. They need to be heard. They need to be seen. They need to be loved, just like you needed to be heard and seen and loved as a child. So we recognize them, we give them voice, we listen, we hear, we care, we show up, we follow their guidance. And that will allow us to step into a new version of ourselves. That's when we can call on the warrior or the mother or the lover, or if it's called for, the fighter, right? So we have a tendency to self-abandon when we are still living from our trauma. I like to joke, I was like a walking trauma response before I understood trauma and how to heal it. And it's pretty crazy. Most of my clients would probably say, yeah, me too, because you don't realize that everything you do in life, everything you think, everything you say, everything you believe, everything you wear, everything you choose to eat, the way you move through life is all driven by these open trauma loops that live in your body and were never closed. It's kind of like walking through life with glass shards in your body, gingerly moving so that you can make sure, don't trigger anything. Don't bump these glass shards, because if you do, you're going to puncture a wound and I'm going to die, or puncture a lung or something, right? Puncture an organ. We don't realize how much energy it takes to manage these traumas, to keep them under control, to not look at them, to not get triggered. This is why so many lightworkers live in perpetual hermit mode under the guise of healing. This is why so many lightworkers continue to buy another course. You know, we call ourselves seekers. We're constantly seeking the next lesson, the next ancient text, the next piece of wisdom. And yes, to some degree, those things help us heal others when we have stepped into being of service. But we never get to that part. We just keep seeking. We just keep learning. We just take another course. This is how the subconscious brain convinces us that we're moving towards our purpose. I'm doing what I came here to do. Really, really. There's something also interesting about the way that psychology plays into spirituality is the confirmation bias. Confirmation bias means our brains will naturally seek out the evidence to prove the thing that we believe. I'm sure you've noticed multiple people can have different beliefs and they've all got evidence that their own belief is right, because the brain will find evidence to support its beliefs. It's not about finding evidence. It's about accurate beliefs. Is the belief serving you? Is it helping you? Are you building a life from that place, or is it restricting you and holding you back? So cognitive bias shows up for light workers and aspiring purpose-driven entrepreneurs in that it tells us, because The brain has to find evidence to prove what it believes. If you have this belief that the world is not safe, or you have a belief that you have to people please, you can't rock the boat, you have a belief that you will be rejected, you will be persecuted if you put yourself out there. You have these beliefs. And so the brain says, I believe it's not safe to do this thing. It is not safe to start this business. It's not safe to put myself out there to risk rejection, to risk being seen. But I know that I'm a light worker and I cannot deny that part of me. My soul knows it and will not let me rest until I step into my purpose. So I have to find a way to not be misaligned with my beliefs. So I have to find a way to prove to myself that I'm doing the thing that I came here to do. I have to find a way to prove to myself I'm moving towards the goal we claim we want. But I very subtly and subconsciously am never actually going to go there, because the trauma lives in the limbic brain, the limbic system, which includes the subconscious brain. It's subtle. It's in your rear mirror or in your blind spot, right? And that's why until we go at the trauma, we will never be able to bootstrap our way through this. You will experience overwhelm. You'll experience shutdown. You will convince yourself, I don't have the money. Whatever it is, the brain will find a reason why we can't do that thing. But then we'll go spend a big chunk of money on another course, right? Notice the lies. Notice the trap. It's very, very subtle. And all of that is necessary to bring you back around, trusting yourself, knowing that you are divine, knowing that the divine lives in your body, that you are here for a reason to do something that matters. The world needs you. We are in charge of building heaven on earth. It is up to us collectively. And so learning to use your system, your network of intelligences to tap into your guidance, to move through these blocks, and finally shine your light to help bring others to the divine. Not through words, not through language, but by being in wholeness. That's how we do it. That feels complete. If you have any questions, let me know. Obviously, I have courses and coaching that dig into all of this. I'd love to see you there. Otherwise, a free 30-minute session is a great place to start. I love you, my friends. Namaste. Take care.